Please welcome Dan's former teammates at Andretti Green Racing, Dario Franchitti, Brian Herta, and Tony Kanaan.
Thanks.
These need to go up a bit.
No, it needs to go down. Well, if you're here today, you feel some kind of connection to Dan. You're either a friend or family or a fan, and you know a lot about what kind of guy he was.
And while we've heard so much about what a great guy, great husband, and great father he was, we did not come here today to tell you more about those things. Yes, those things are all true, but to talk only about them would do a disservice to our friend.
We've all been sad for the past 7 days, but Dan gave all of us 33 years of life, 33 years of living, and 33 years of things to remember and to celebrate. If the roles were reversed and Dan was here today to pay tribute to one of us, he would not be here to be sad. He would be here to celebrate life and to make people around him feel better.
And for the time we knew him, Dan celebrated life every day, and we're here today to help you celebrate who he was. So with that, we're going to enter now the no-cry zone. Oh, it's a yellow paper.
Legal paper.
Man, your handwriting is terrible.
I know. Can I tell you?
Thank God you're a driver. So, go ahead.
Well, first of all, we're all...
we're not wearing this because we're really proud to have...
Of our own achievements. Mm-hmm. These are Dan's championship rings from 2005, and when he won, he was kind enough to give us one. So this is the only time I'll ever wear these. Really, and actually the only time I'll ever wear white shoes like these too. I thought you'd appreciate that. We were, what's the word, lucky enough?
Well, Dan got hired as a backup driver back in the end of 2002. Dario was on vacation in Scotland with Ashley driving all his Ferraris. Brian didn't want to have anything to do with testing, and
It wasn't me yet.
Brian wasn't there yet.
Oh, that's true.
I have Dario's questionable motorbike skills to thank for bringing me into
right.
Dan's life and into the Andretti Green.
It was just the three of us and Michael. And I was under contract to a team, and I couldn't test, so we chose Dan to do it. He did 4,000 miles for us.
Mm-hmm. And then I fell off the bike and...
Yeah, you were trying to be...
Superman,
and Brian got in anyway, but...
Anyway.
When Dan and TK and Dario and I came together, it completed a puzzle for all of us. And it created, I think, for all of us, the most memorable time in racing and the most fun time. And a lot of that was due to, and some of it was at the expense of Mr. Dan Wheldon.
Well, most of it was at the expense of Dan, to be honest.
And by the way, we didn't want him. He was a brother that we didn't ask for. I mean, a guy that looks better than the three of us.
Yeah. Younger.
Hungry for win.
Won more races. Yeah.
Yes. He was the only one of us. He was the only one of us that looked like he belonged in the boy band.
Well, he was bigger than Beckham. Come on.
He was bigger than Beckham. Yeah.
But we had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We had a lot of fun at his expense. Everybody knows what a neat freak Dan was.
Oh, yeah.
At Indianapolis one time, we were getting ready. We were all going to go out together and do a long run together. And Dan's locker, like his closet, was immaculate always.
Well, we have the lockers together, and he made us look like pigs.
Yeah, and he was misfortunate enough to make some comment about how sloppy our lockers were. So we took it upon ourselves to fix his locker for him. We threw everything out. We threw things up on the roof. We threw things everywhere right before we were going out to run.
And we had to do a long run together, the four of us.
So we were, much like Mike was talking about, we were out there waiting. Where's Dan? Well, it turns out Dan was back in the garage and couldn't actually face driving the car before the locker was put back into its pre-pristine stage.
We blame Brian on that.
And our late friend John Anderson went back there, and I believe it went something like, "Hey, Shag, come on, hurry up." And Dan, at that point, was trying to jump up and pull the suit that somebody had put up on the ceiling off so he could get out there. But
Yeah, he said before his locker wasn't done and he couldn't get his suit out of there, he was not going to jump in the car. So we had to actually come back and kind of help him a bit.
I think the most famous story is probably the Japan one, and because this is an audience of mixed age,
we'll tell half of the story.
We can tell half of the story. We in 2004, we went to the Motegi race as usual in Japan, and we were bored.
A little bit, you know, time difference and Dan's first race, and Brian had the brilliant idea to tell me to go to the front desk and pretend that I was Dan Wheldon, which but thanks for the language barrier, my poor English, and the Japanese chick that was in the reception, she gave me his room key.
So we went up there, and we went in his room. I think, had somebody not sent him to the museum?
No, and Brian at the time said, Dan, you should go to the Honda Museum.
It's amazing.
It's beautiful.
Spend a lot of time, really look at it carefully. Meanwhile, we were in his room.
So we got the PR person to take him there.
So the first thing we did, all his shoes were laid on the bed, all in shoe bags, laid out. So we took one of each.
The left
one.
We didn't want to take his throttle shoe.
Yeah.
We went into the bathroom. We took some hair care products.
By the way, he had more hair products than any single girl combined together here.
Unbelievable. We stole his TV because we needed a TV.
We turned the heater on.
Yeah, for another part of the story. But
every light bulb.
Every light bulb off.
And then we left.
No, by the way, we FedEx his shoes back to America.
So
it cost us a lot, but it was fun.
It was worth it, man. So we then go to our rooms. All the rooms were adjoining. And we're sitting there waiting, and it's getting a bit warm because of the heating, and the whole floor was getting warm. Then we hear Dan come up to the door.
Click, click.
Good. That's exactly what it sounded like. And then you heard...
You can't say it.
You can't say this, but it was like...
For a while.
He wouldn't speak to us for how long?
He was running up and down the hallway yelling. We're like little kids hiding in the room laughing, but we're actually afraid to come out of the room. He was so mad. And we had Eddie, I remember looking through the people, and Eddie Cheever and Robert Clark from Honda, all these people were staying on our floor, coming out of the rooms to see what the commotion's all about. And he's pounding on our doors, and he was not happy.
He moved rooms.
Yeah.
Yes. And I could never get a key again in that hotel, even with my ID and my own room. Funny story, we start racing in Miami, and obviously the past 9 years we race at Homestead, and then every time we race in Miami, he stayed in my house.
When he came to LA, he'd stay with
drove all my cars. Never thanked me.
Stole your watch?
Stole one of my watches, which he was wearing in one of those pictures. Susie, we'll talk. Huh? And then we announced that we're going to race in St. Pete. So we all assume we have a place to stay. Well, for the past 9 years, I've never slept in Dan's house.
No.
Because he didn't want to actually get his rooms messed up.
No, he didn't want us to mess up his room. As a matter of fact, when I did go to visit, I remember I used the washroom, and he made sure to tell me to wipe the sink down with the towel after I finished.
By the way, before you get to his house, you better take your shoes off or you're not getting in. So anyway, I never slept there, never drove any one of his cars, but that was Dan.
That was Dan. We were talking about his style earlier, but when we were down in St. Pete this week, it was good to have everybody together, and we're telling some stories, and the one that did come up a lot was his questionable style. I mean, without doubt, the tightest race suit I've ever seen. I don't know, has anybody here seen any driver with a tighter race suit than Dan? I'm surprised he fathered 2 kids, to be honest. Show the impression.
Should we do the impression?
The best part was when Dan and he was on the podium frequently in his tight race suit. It was not made for hoisting a trophy overhead. And if you look at some of the pictures, this actually would happen to him. This would be Dan raising a trophy on the podium. And believe me, we never we never missed an opportunity to remind him of that, or his $1 million smile. The guy was trying to make up for an entire country's worth of bad dental work in one mouth.
I mean, the guy that he went and probably talked to Susie about who was the best dentist in St. Pete to make sure he had the biggest, brightest smile on earth. Well,
that's the old one.
That's the old one because we asked.
Before.
And he did it.
He is the only guy. A lot of people have won the Indianapolis 500 more than once, but he is the only guy to be on the Borg Warner Trophy with 2 different sets of teeth.
Should we close?
Yeah.
Well,
so as you can tell, we love Dan a lot. We used to play a lot of jokes on him.
you don't have to go close.
I will. I do,
That's
but I
made
speak quietly. But thank you.
I can't anyway.
We used to think Dan was really, really high maintenance. And then we got Marco as a teammate.
So Dan actually wasn't even close. So, M.A., you beat that one big time.
Yeah, I remember one time because we used to tease him a lot. He was always on edge, and I let it be known that I got a key to his house in Indianapolis. It was during the month of May, during a practice day. I don't remember how Dan did it, but he managed to find a locksmith from the Speedway who went to his house that day and changed all the locks on his house. He was so proud of himself that he foiled my plan. He came up to me at the end of the day and said, "No worries, Goose, I changed all the locks on my house." I had a big smile. I looked at him. I said, "I never really had a key."
Well, make no mistake, guys. I'm not making fun of my friend. I laughed at him and with him over the years because I love him. And he did the same with me. I love him like a brother. And like all brothers, there are times that we called each other names. We gave each other the finger in the 500 this year. But I explained that not to make him look bad. He was waving and it was too windy and he missed 4 at a time. And we had agreed to disagree. But our friendship was bigger than all of that. And like you guys, I'm grateful for the time we got to spend with him on Earth. And all to that bit of time is done, our time together, it's not over. We have our memories, we have our feelings, and one day we'll be together again. It's for that reason that I'm not saying goodbye to Dan. Not today and not ever. Goodbye is final. Our friendship won't end. So for now, I'll simply say, I'll see you later. I love you, my good friend.
Yeah. Like many others sharing their thoughts today, I was privileged to spend a lot of time with Dan, especially over the last 6 months, from working together at the Indianapolis 500 to also tagging along to some of his media appearances after the race, and then working so much on the development of this 2012 Dallara IndyCar. Those experiences made us even closer, and I'm so grateful for that time together. And in that time, Dan retained that trademark $1 million smile, that energy that seemed to fill any room he stepped into, and his playful way of pushing everyone around him to meet the same impossibly high standards he set for himself. But there was something different, too. He had blossomed into this incredible person that was so giving of his time and experience, clearly fulfilled and happy in his personal life, often telling stories about his boys and Susie to his friends at the track. He had become complete, and his happiness spilled over into everything and everyone he touched. Dan would have been incredibly appreciative and humbled by the tremendous outpouring of love and support from his friends and fans. I know that has been a source of strength for Dan's entire family, and I want to thank everyone who has remembered Dan's loved ones this week. I also like to ask that we continue to do so. Dan's legend on and off the track lives on in each one of us, and we should continue to honor him and remember his legacy. So many of you have shared stories of your time with Dan, and it has been amazing to learn just how many people Dan connected to over his life. His ability to spend just a few minutes with someone, but find a way to make that time special and meaningful, is the example from Dan I most hope to be able to follow. I'll leave you with one little story that was shared through Facebook just a couple days ago. There's a family of 4 attending the Las Vegas race that waited patiently outside Dan's hauler for 30 minutes, just hoping for a chance to meet him and maybe catch a quick autograph. As Dan emerged from the trailer, he was rushing over to make it out for driver intros, but he still graciously stopped and talked briefly with the family. He even posed for a couple pictures and signed a couple autographs. The family was thrilled to meet their hero, and as Dan walked away, he stopped and turned back to the family and said, "Thank you for coming out. I appreciate it." In that moment, Dan made the entire family fans for life, and not for the short time he had left with us, but their entire lives. God bless you, Danny, and thank you. We all appreciate it.
I will say Dan would be so proud of this turnout today. He'd be like, "I told you, bro, I'm big in Indy. I told you." He was big everywhere. I mean, it's but awesome. At first, Dan was really nice. He was pretty much the little brother we didn't want. And now, we would do anything to have him back. We'll miss you, D-Dub. Thank you.
The drivers paying one last tribute to the great Dan Wheldon.
This is a time for these men and women who pilot these race cars to be with their families and to embrace what Dan Wheldon meant, what Dan Wheldon would want. And I think it's fitting that we honor that.
First of all, I want to thank everyone who had a voice in allowing me to be a part of this service here today. I'm also very proud to say that Dan was a friend of mine. Now, he wasn't my best friend, and I know that I wasn't his best friend. But if you ever had the opportunity to speak with Dan for any length of time on any subject, he had a special way of making you feel like that he was your best friend.
Sometimes looking for the right words is just a matter of remembering history. To borrow the words of one of my broadcasting heroes, Sid Collins, who talked about the death of Eddie Sachs in the 1964 Indianapolis 500. We are all speeding toward death at the rate of 60 minutes every hour. The only difference is we do not know how to speed faster. Dan Wheldon did. So since death has more than 1,000 doors, Dan exits this earth in a race car. The poet Byron said, "Who the gods love, die young."
Yesterday, there was a memorial service in Dan's adopted hometown of St. Petersburg, Florida. His father and brothers and sister recorded a message that they want to play for everyone now.
Hi, I'd like to just say my name's Clive Wheldon. I'm Dan's. Dan was my son who, as you know, was very special to us. This is my family. Holly on my left, Elliot on my right, Austin on my left behind, and Ashley. And what we do, we'd just like to say to everyone the support they've given to Dan over the years. He loved you guys. And it was always a pleasure watching him race. And I'd just like to say a special thank you to everyone who supported him. Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Thank you.